Okay, so today I want to take just a couple of minutes and talk about a billet strap, or off billet in some cases. I've heard it called a latigo strap, a cinch strap, um, trying to think of some other names, but I think billet technically means this side maybe, and the other side is the off billet, but you'll see if you look up billet straps or off billets, you'll come up with both. The reason I think this used to be called a latigo is because it was actually made a latigo before they started making the nylon ones. But a couple of things. So every once in a while, I notice somebody who uses it might even be called a latigo knot, I'm not sure, where you go up and around like this and pull it down through, which I used my entire life and didn't really have any problems with it at all. Works. But I will say this, it works a lot better with latigo, with real leather, because it gets tacky and it holds. This nylon is kind of slippery, and it will slip out of there with enough movement. The other thing to note about this, which is why I ultimately switched to a nylon with holes in it, you can do leather with holes in it as well, is this bump that, for me, I'm kind of short, I don't know, it's right where my knee tends to hit on my saddle. So that bump under there, it's fine if you're used to dealing with it. It's a lot nicer when you don't have it there though. So they started making these nice nylon ones, and then they punched a bunch of holes in them, and then they started making the cinches with this nice little prong. This is basically not gonna ever slip. The other nice thing about the nylon is that it slides easy, so it's super easy to pull up. So for kids and things like that, like, oh, you're trying to tighten that cinch, and you know that latigo gets tacky, especially if it's been sweaty. It buckles up on you, and it makes it a little bit hard to get that cinch where you want it. Because it slides so easy, this is something that I pull up while mounted. I don't get off to mess with my girth. I don't give it, I don't put it in the tightest notch when we take off. A little guilty of leaving it a little bit loose most of the time, actually, but I feel that, I reach down and I feel, I was like, oh, is it too snug? We're climbing things, she's moving around on stuff. I kind of don't want it to be uncomfortable for what I'm doing. So as long as I stay centered and I have all my other stuff on, my back cinch is snug, I have a breast collar on most of the time, and on a mule, I use a Cooper or a Britchin, and I don't worry too much about that being all that snug. It also keeps her from getting too rubbed right in here, like mules do, just the way they're built. The alignment of their shoulders seems to be a little bit further back in line with the withers than on a horse, where the withers seem to be back a little bit and the girth area seems to be more forward, so that girth naturally rides back a little further. I know. So anyway, the other thing about nylon, it can take on water, it can take on sweat, it might get stiff, it might get a little bit crusted up with salt, but you can wash it and it doesn't rot out. So unless you're checking that latigo or that leather all the time, it very well could be getting some cracks in there and something could break. Just a little tidbit and something to think about.